In this video, we're going to take an electrical engineer's perspective on setting up title blocks in Revit. So the first 4 minutes are going to be very basic of, how to load in a family that you got from the architect for a title block and quickly change it out throughout the entire project. And then after that, we're going to be getting much more advanced and going into the family editor and talking about how to create a title block for your own electrical template, what you might want to have, what information you want to include, and then how to actually do that in Revit. So the topics we'll be covering at that part is, how to get into the family editor, what the best practices are for the title block information that we show as engineers, how we can adjust the spacing and margins and why we do it the way we do it, inserting images, formatting text, getting technical with labels and linking in smart data so that we can have control while we're editing the title block in our project, loading in a north arrow through Autodesk, and then talking a bit about system parameters and how they're different from type and instance parameters. So let's get into it. Okay, so before we get much further, we're going to want to change out our title block. And this is because the title block is going to affect how we format and lay out our sheets. So if you start laying out everything and then your title block changes, you may have to rework some stuff and it just wastes time picking up those changes, especially if the size of your title block changes for the sheets. So, most often we're using 30-inch by 42-inch sheets and our title block will be set up accordingly. But sometimes we'll be asked by the client to do a different type of sheet. So maybe a 24 by 36 inch. And if you set up your sheets one way and the title block changes sheet size, it's going to be a big mess. So let's make sure we're using the right title block. So as an electrical engineer, we're typically given a title block from the architect or from the client that we should use. So we just insert the file. So we'll look at that first. So let's say the architect sent me a title block to use and we just need to load it into our project. So we can go up to our insert tab, load family, because the title block is just going to be a family. Go to wherever you've saved it in your folder structure and click open. And so it's going to look like nothing happened, but what did happen is that if you go to your families, and it should be under annotations, your title block will now show up here. So that's where you can see title block Betty. There we go. So this is it. So I can drag this over and that's what my new title block looks like. So, I could delete this one and move this over, but really the best way to do this is to go click your title block and then you can change out the family within the same sort of category. So here I can see that, the Betty one is here, title block Betty. Click that. Okay, and now it changes the title block in the same spot. So you can see what happens that this area over here is a different size, you see? So now I can actually move this view, over. I can put notes closer to this side, which if we didn't edit the title block until the end, that would become an issue. So one other thing I want to show here is, oftentimes we may have all of our sheets set up and the architects will send us an updated title block. So a quick way to do this for everything is for all of your sheets, is if you left click your title block, right click, select all instances and entire project. Now you're going to see for all the number of sheets I have, it says 4. It's selected over here. I can drop this down, click on the Betty title block, and now the title block has been updated for all the sheets. So I don't need to go individually to every single thing here, right? Okay, so getting back into the title block a little bit, typically this is pretty, intuitive. You can just change out the values by clicking here. So if the project's name is Betty Brew and the owner is Betty, that's all we need to put there. Maybe we put the address in this line and put Betty Brew up at top. That's just kind of up to you and what everybody else on your team is putting. You can go down here, say the project number is 42. It's drawn by Sam and checked by Dan. Actually, these are going to be initials, so it shouldn't be Sam. It should be, SRM and whatever Dan's initials are. And yeah, so you'll see that those will change over here in your parameters as well. And then you can update your sheet titles the same way just by clicking them. You can also update them over here. So that's really it for title blocks, but I do because we're talking about, you know, developing this from scratch, what if you didn't get sent a template, right? So now we're going to get a little bit more advanced. So if all you're looking is how to change out the template and get your title block set, that's it. But if you want to learn a little bit more advanced skills on editing families and creating your own electrical template, that's what we'll do now. We'll show you how I got to, you know, this title block over here and why we might want to use something like this, because the one that comes with Autodesk is not, you know, all that great. Okay, so let's undo so that that title block is not in my project. And let's talk about what we can do to update this title block. So again, a title block is just a family, and to edit any family, you can left click it and hit edit family, or you can double click it and you'll get into the family editor. So now that we're in the family editor, we just need to make the changes for this title block. So typically what information is shown on a title block, it's going to be the engineering firm's name and logo that you work for, a place to stamp the drawings, the information of the client, the revision schedule, which is this thing right here. We're going to have the project's name and address, and we're going to have the project number, the whose initials was it drawn by, whose initials was it checked by, and then the sheet name and the sheet number. So Autodesk gives us a little bit of extra stuff like the date and scale, which we really don't want to show too much information here because it just gives us another chance to cause errors. And scale, you know, sometimes we'll have differing scales, sometimes it won't be to scale, so this doesn't really need to be there. And so let's just make more use of this space. So the first thing to consider is your margins. So this is like the edge of the boundary of the sheet, right? So if we measure this, this is going to be that 42 inches. Yeah, 3'6". You can see that there, 2'6". So it's a 30 by 42 inch sheet. And then we'll have another, you know, sort of square within the sheet area that's showing where we're actually putting information. And we do this because we want to have some margins so that stuff doesn't get cut off when we print. And because, you know, we're mostly using PDFs now, this is not as big of a deal as it used to be, but we still have some things that we want to make sure of. So the Autodesk one, the margins are a little bit big. So if we measure this over here, it's about 1.25 inches, which on that side, we're actually going to want to leave it that way, because think about it. If you print out this set of drawings and staple it or bind it, it's going to be bound over on this side. So that's bound, meaning just you're flipping through it, right? And if the margin on that side is much shorter than 1.25 inches, then stuff might get tucked underneath that fold, and that's really annoying. So we don't want to have that happen on our drawing. So that one we'll leave the same. But for all of these other lines, so that our margins, the top, bottom, and right, we can make those about 1/2 inch. So to do that, you can just click this, drag, left click, and then move on your keyboard is MV. And then you see it's giving me some options here. I can just type in 1/2 and then the inch sign. And now my margin is 1/2 inch. Oh, well, I grabbed the wrong line. So you see what happened there is I grabbed this line, the outer edge. I want to make sure I'm hitting tab here until I get underneath that for the inner boundary. And now I'm going to do the same thing where I move 0.5 inch, should do the same thing. So there we go. Now we can do the same thing out here. .5 inch. Oh, let's make sure I don't select the wrong line again. No, that looks like the right line. So move 0.5 inch. Then we can get these lines back connected to here. And then do the last one down here, move it down, tab into the smaller line, MV. And you see, you want your cursor to be straight up. So like if you do it this way, it'll angle this line off a bit. So you want to make sure it's, you see that other line comes up, it's snapped in there, 0.5 inch. Okay. So now here's the other thing. This, what Autodesk gives us here is too big. You know, this is a waste of space on our sheets to make our title block 6 inches wide. That's just too much. And what it does is, you know, it gives us 3 inches more of space to show material. And that becomes valuable, right? Because we want to keep our sets clear and concise. And that could be the difference of adding a whole new sheet. So let's draw a box here and select all of this stuff for the time being. We can hit MV, move it out of that area. And then, so this was 6 inches. I'm going to type in MV on my keyboard and move this over to be 3 inches. And so now this area where we're actually going to show the title block material is only 3 inches. So that looks good. Okay, so let's start drawing some information in for our title block, because again, the Autodesk thing didn't give us everything that we wanted. So we'll want a place to stamp, so we can put that in the top right corner. So I'll go to create, hit a line. Let's make this like 2.5 inches. That sounds about right. And then we can draw this line. So create line, find out where that line ended, 2.5 inches. And we'll delete this because we want to be exact here, right? I could just create and draw, you know, a line like that, but I want to make sure that I'm having, you know, even proportions here. So that's 2.5 inches. That will be the area that we put our stamp. I can draw another line. Let's do 2.5 inches again. So I can go until I see 2.5 inches, draw another line, get rid of this guy. So this will be where we put our engineering firm's information. And then what do we need at the bottom? So we'll probably put stamp, engineering firm information, client information, and name. So we can take this, move this over, rotate. So RO on your keyboard. And then we'll see up to 90 degrees there. Move this there. Again, click this, RO. And then you just need to click, really it doesn't matter where you click here, you just need a base point, and then it's gonna move it 90 degrees in relation to that base point. So I can even type in 90, hit enter, that will work. Put that there. You can expand this text box a bit so that your text doesn't wrap, because if you have a, you know, if your client's name is like, I don't know, some really long name, then it will start wrapping and create a mess on your title block. So let's make this, you know, pretty long there. Now we can bring over our revision schedule. So the nice thing is that Autodesk has most of these set up already. So this is actually a smart schedule that's going to be linking to your system parameters of, you know, when your date's going to be issued. So we'll see that in the future. Just know that what comes with Revit is already set up. So if you want to actually see what's going on in the schedule, you can click in here. And then if you click revision schedule, it'll give you all of your properties. So you can tell, you know, what fields are going into the schedule, how they're sorted, formatting, all that. One thing that we probably do want to do here is make the text a little bit smaller. So it's at 3/16 right now. And that's just going to be too big. So we can go to like 3/32. Yeah, that's going to look better. Once we squeeze this down, you'll see. So in this column, it's just going to be if we have any revision tags or issuance numbers. So that can be pretty small. We're probably not going to get more than, you know, 3 digits at the maximum there. And then we can drag this in until we get to be over top of these lines. So, you know, you want to have this line be right in the middle of this line there. That's good. And then you can drag this a little over here. Maybe I'll type move on my keyboard, get a base point, snap it in there. And now I can drag this one back over. Okay, that looks pretty good. I probably won't need that many issuances, so I can drag this up a little bit. And then we'll want to make sure that, you know, these aren't going to overlap, and so we drag these up there. We'll come back and look at that once we finish this. So, okay, so let's put some clarifying notes up here. So if I type in TX on my keyboard, that's going to bring up text. I can draw a text box by clicking left to right, and then I can just write stamp because I want to label this area, right? So that looks good, but it's a little bit too big. And this is where your standards come into play, right? So you should really have an understanding of the standard sizes of text that you're going to be using. So Revit comes with some defaults, which are pretty well done already. So you can just do like 3/32 here. And then if you want to bold this because it's kind of like a title, that looks good. Drag this back in there. And then one way to make sure your formatting everything is the same is keep these lines like that. Then I can hit CO on my keyboard, copy, get a base point, bring it down to here, and we'll call this engineer. Make sure your text doesn't wrap. And then if I want to put my company's information in here, I can do insert. Let's get a logo. So I'll do an image. I can find out wherever my client's logo would be. So for me, that's going to be in my marketing folder, I believe. Actually, no, probably branding. So yeah, there's our logo. Then I can just click it here, scale it down. And this is just, I mean, this is just kind of where you're being like a graphic designer, you know, what looks nice. So, you know, try and get these to line up. That looks about right. Then we will do TX again. And here, because it's going to be like more of a title for my company's name, we might use a little bit bigger of a font. So I'll type in Building Engineer Training Institute. And again, this is just, you know, stylistic preferences. Maybe that's a little bit too big, so I can go down to 1/8. That looks pretty good. I want this to be bolded again. Drag that in. And then, you know, maybe 2.5 inches is a little bit much here, so I can drag that up. An inch, maybe? Yeah, let's say an inch. That looks good. And then we will shift our client name, project name up a little bit. That looks good. Okay, and then we can get our project number, our drawn by, and our checked by put in over here. So I'm going to do another line. And again, yeah, this is just, you know, stylistic preferences. So let's see here. This is 3 inches, right? So I want 3 boxes because I want project number, drawn, and checked by. So each of these would be about an inch, or they would be exactly an inch because it's 3 inches. So 1, oh, I did foot. 1 inch. And that's where it put it out to. So draw a line up there, get rid of this, or I can even just move it over if I want. Move over that inch. It's going to give me problems because sometimes it snaps the thing, so it might be better just to get rid of that actually. So let's draw another line, 1 inch. Then we'll draw a line again. Also, LI is your keyboard shortcut for line if you want to go a little bit faster here. But then we will grab our text again. Copy from this base point. Go down here. Project number. Maybe I don't want these to be bold because it's just smaller subheadings. I can bring this up a little bit just so that looks nice and centered. There we go. Project number. Drawn by. CO for copy. Checked by. Okay, so now we'll just extend these. Lines. All right, here's an important, you know, technical thing with Revit. Now, what Autodesk has done with their title block has been to set up labels. So these are things that are related to system parameters. So when you create any type of title block, there's these things that are called system parameters that will be associated with every single title block and sheet. And the Autodesk title block has already linked these to some of those system parameters. So for example, if I click on this text here, 2000.01, this is saying it's a label, right? And if I see the properties, I can hit edit and it will tell me what that label is. So this is associated with the project number parameter, which is fine. So we can drag this over here. See, it's too big again. So let's actually see if there's not a 330 seconds label. So what we can do here is edit type. We'll duplicate this type. We'll call it 330 seconds. And then we will change the text size here. All right, okay. Okay, so now we've got a different size text for that label, and we can get it pretty close to where it needs to be there. Okay. So there's our project number. What is this one associated with? So if I hit edit label, this is drawn by. So that's what we're showing under this column. So we can, again, let's change this label down. Bring it back here. They're drawn by. So one other thing is all of these are horizontally aligned left. These labels were horizontally aligned right. So I can control click them. Let's just make them left so we're being consistent here. All right, that's good. And then let's do the same thing for this checked by. So if I hit edit label, it'll tell me the parameter. And this is again a system parameter. It's kind of hard to tell what are system parameters and what are shared parameters. I guess when you're doing shared parameters, you'll know what the shared parameters are, but understanding systems parameters, it can kind of be difficult at the beginning, but they're just the things that are default coming up over here. Like you didn't have to create them. So, okay, checked by as the system parameter. I'll hit okay, change this to 330 seconds, make this left horizontally aligned, drag this in, bring this up over here. It'll automatically link that there. I can just copy this line, use this base point up here, drag it down. That actually looks like a little bit too much space for that little line, so I'll try and bring it up by an even number. There's a 1/4 inch. Maybe we'll bring these up a little bit, so I'll just nudge it on my arrows until it looks like it's about center. That looks good to me. All right, that's fine. And then the last thing that we'll do over here is bring over this. So again, this is just another label. 5/8 is going to be too big. Let's make it 3/8 down here. We can also bring these down just to continue to be consistent. So I'll copy this here. We'll call this issue/revision. And drag that out there. So that's just text. These are labels. This is text. This again is a label. And I'm going to want my sheet name over top of this. So this is actually the sheet name label. So we want to bring in this window so that it will wrap. And then we can draw some more lines here. So let's get a text here, copy this, bring it down. And then here we'll say, I'm just hitting the arrow keys to nudge it up like that. That looks good. We'll type in sheet title. And then this is where that will go. And we can draw another line. We're going to have some extra space, I think, down here at the bottom. So let's actually start shifting this stuff down so I can draw a box. Type in MB on my keyboard, pick a base point, and basically just move this thing down. I'm going to want to move straight down, so that will be good. That looks good. Copy here. Use this base point again. Sheet title. Sheet number. And that pretty much does it for creating this title block. One other thing that's worth showing, so I just deleted all this stuff from Autodesk because I don't need that anymore. I don't want to show the date because it will put that on our revisions log. I don't want to show the scale because we'll show that on our view titles. Consultant numbers, that's typically more for architect sheets. If they send you a title block, they can choose to include that. I wouldn't put it on my engineering firm's title block though. So, okay, that all looks good. Man, look at that. That looks real good. So now one last thing that we might want to do is put a north arrow on this, which is pretty typical. So to do that, we can go to Insert, Load Autodesk Family, and then I've already got it typed up, but you can just type in north arrow, and you'll have a couple different options for north arrows to use. I personally like this one. If you really want to be fancy, you can go into this family and start customizing it too, but we're not going to do that. So I'll open up the families, annotation symbols. That's where my north arrow saves, north arrow with rotation. I like circles. Just put this about right there. And now this north arrow will be there. So this north arrow is nice, the one that comes with Autodesk, because it gives you a parameter to change the angle. So if I did 90, it's going to be straight up, and that's nice because sometimes firms will just have like a symbol here and they come in and rotate it for the sheets. So this gives you a better way to do that. So I want to show you a couple of different one more advanced tip on creating this title block. So this looks good, and we could be done here and just if they wanted to change the north arrow, they would come and delete or turn it off or rotate it in the title block. So I could technically save this file now, and I would save as a family wherever you want it to be located at. Okay, and then I can load it back into my project. So again, it'll ask me to click it this time. Again, I can move it over, but let's do what we talked about earlier. So I'll delete this. The family's still in my project though, so I can right click, select all instances, an entire project. Change it to practice title block. Nice. So the one more advanced tip that I want to show though is this north arrow is kind of funky, right? I don't have any control when I go into the properties, and that's annoying. So what we can do is if I go back to my family, I can actually associate some advanced parameters with this north arrow. So I didn't mean to click into the family there. I'll click the north arrow and then the north angle. Let's make this a type parameter. So you see what I did there? Go over to north angle, click this little box there, and then this is where we can associate family parameters. So there's none there yet. Let's create a new parameter and let's call this angle. That's it. And then we can hit OK. And now that becomes a type parameter. If you ever want to see what type parameters you've created, you can go up to this family types button up here, and you can see that now that's the only the type parameter that we have for this so far. And let's do one more. So that will allow you to change the angle. And let's do this one to make it visible. So for the angle, that's typically going to be the same for everywhere in the project, but for visible, this is going to toggle, it's going to give us the option to turn the north arrow on and off. And maybe for some sheets, we'll want to have that turned on, like floor plans, and maybe for other sheets, we'll want to have that turned off, like single line diagrams. Like there's not really a north arrow on a single line. So instead of making this a type parameter, we can make it an instance parameter, and we can say north arrow on. Just to be consistent here, we can group this parameter under visibility. This just keeps things a little bit more organized. If you left it on other, it wouldn't really make a big difference. You can hit OK, hit OK. and then load into project. You can overwrite the existing version. And so now when I click this, you'll see that for this sheet, this instance, I can click north arrow off and it goes away. If I did select all instances in view or an entire project, you know, the other ones are still showing on. That's why this is clicked. But if I wanted to turn that back on and then show you like, okay, so maybe this actually isn't north up here. Maybe north is this way. So what we can do is go to our edit type, change our angle to 0, hit apply, look at that. And so then this points that north is facing this way. So that is pretty much all I wanted to talk about with the title block. I guess one last thing is, again, over here, these are system parameters, right? They're things that we can't get rid of. So like the sheet name and the sheet number, that's what we linked to those labels when we were messing around here. The checked by and drawn by, these are system parameters. I wish honestly that we could delete these, or not drawn by, checked by, but designed by and approved by. I wish that we could honestly delete these because I don't ever use them, but because they're system parameters, they're going to show up every time with sheets and title blocks like this, so you can't get rid of them. If you want to edit the project number, because this, you know, doesn't come up over here, you can just type in, you know, 42 author SRN, capitals, but you see what I mean. Now it's intuitive and now it looks good. This looks much more like what we would use in a commercial setting than what we originally had with Autodesk. So that's all for this video. I will see you in the next. If you're still watching this video, I hope that means that you found it helpful. And if you're looking to learn more about electrical engineering design and using Revit in the MEP industry, you can start our 3-week electrical engineering bootcamp by clicking the link in the description below, and you can get started now for free. So here at the Building Engineer Training Institute, we're engineers, we train engineers, we love MEP. And if you are interested in this industry or you're working in this industry, we would love to help you. So let us know how we can help.